And this project is a part of European projects Not Yet Written Stories from SCCA. And first he will show us the film and then describe a bit about the restoration process and the importance of digitalization.
This is a student film which was made at the end of 70s, so it was never subtitled, so everything what is spoken is in Slovenian dialect. So just to describe you a little bit about the story, it's a documentary film which was made for the second year of study at the director's study at Slovenia Akademiji, Ljubljana Academy for Film. The director was Žarko Lužnik, and the story is about Janez Rus, who is from a small village from the Lenska part of Slovenia, and he was during the Yugoslavia period of this country, he was hiding in his house for 30 years because some other villagers suspected that he was part of the right-wing army and that he was a collaborator against the partisans, and because he was afraid of his own life, he was hiding for 30 years. And at that time, when this film was made, he came to the light from the darkness, and everybody was talking about how it is possible that somebody in such a small village was hiding for 30 years. The interesting part of this film is that Žarko Lužnik decided to somehow present this story with metaphors. So he wasn't just filming this survivor, he was asking other villagers about their opinions, he was filming their customs, the killing of the pigs, and he somehow managed to pull some parallels between the life of a guy who was 30 years in hiding and the possible outcome if he would come to the light before. I think I will play the film now. It's about 20 minutes long, and then after I will tell you something about the restoration process. Just maybe shortly to translate these titles. So this project was mainly financed by Slovenian film producer Stara Gara. The film was made on 16mm stock. It was color. It is sound film. And the restoration process was supervised by expert group who was consisting of Nadia Šičarov. She was the leader of the group. The sound was restored by Juli Zornik, picture by Emil Svetlik, Zoran Mihajlović and Franz Sokolić. What is, I think, in my opinion, most fascinating is that this was filmed during the time that he was still accused of these crimes. And I think that after he came to the freedom or to the light, they were trying to bring him in front of the judge. But then, during this time of hearings, I think they decided that he gave himself enough punishment of 30 years. So they actually got him a job as a shoemaker, which he was by education. And I think that he lived in freedom for almost 30 or 40 years as a shoemaker. So in the end, nobody hurt him or anything. So like he said that he gave himself enough punishment. During this project was, as I said, kind of corroborated between these institutes and companies who gratefully helped me in making of my master thesis. I think I decided to do master thesis out of film restoration because I think that film heritage and kind of I think it's really important to preserve such film documents, and I think that student films are in Slovenia, as other films, slowly starting to get the importance. And I was hoping that this kind of project would shine additional light to the need and importance of preserving film heritage. In last years in Slovenia there was some improvement, some progress due to the Association of Film Directors of Photography, due to Slovenian Cinematech and some other initiatives that started slowly to bring some projects to life. And I think I had great opportunity to do something in this field. So for the beginning, maybe just a short timeline. We did this project for almost a year, 13-14 months. Basically, it began like an idea that one of the student films had to be restored, and that it would be great study case for the future restorations, because it would be under great some kind of guidance from experts, and that we should do some kind of case study how to do film restoration. I collaborated with my academy, and they compiled 8 candidate films which would be deemed suitable for the restoration. And then we researched all the materials, the state of materials. Some films were still unfinished for 40 years. Some were in really bad conditions. And we tried to find all the possible documentation there is. We also contacted authors. Some of them are not even in film business. Some of them are already retired. Some of them were already dead. So in the end, we kind of decided that the best candidate for this project would be this film, In the Dark, by Žarko Lužnik. And that was because the film materials were in really bad condition, and because all the main authors were already deceased. So the film director, Žarko Lužnik, and director of photography, Vilko Filač, were already dead, and we decided that we have to preserve their work because they cannot stand for their work anymore. With the help of my mentors, we formed an expert group, which consisted of film director, as I mentioned, director of photography, and sound expert. And everything was kindly managed and led by Nadia Šicharov, the film restorer and archivist. As it can be seen in the diagram, the most part of the time was spent in research and in restoration. With kind help of Slovenian Film Archive and our academy, we managed to find all the documentation there was. But there was not a lot, so we had to rely on the experts to make the final product. When we made the decision about the source materials, we used them for the digitization. RTV Slovenia kindly helped us with the cleaning and sanation of materials, and then at the end we did the sound and film restoration in Teleking, picture restoration, and in Studio 100 sound restoration. In January 2019, the final restored film was screened, and the final expert group decided that this is the final version which should be shown from now on. During the duration of this project, we had to make some really important decisions. The first was that we do a careful research of all available documentation and materials, because our thinking was that we should know what was the director's and other authors' intent in this film. The problem was that this is a student film, so it was all made under mentorship, and also it was made under tough financial conditions. So they didn't. The technical situation was not the best, and also all the collaborators were basically volunteers or students from this academy. So as you heard, the sound was not the best, the picture was somewhere overexposed or so on. But we said that this is not important, that we should find out everything that is possible about the making of this film. Then we decided with our mentor that the most important thing is that restorers have some experts to whom they should rely, and we decided to form an expert group. And we were basing on some doctrine from the Czech film directors of photography, what should be the workflow of the project. And they have written in their manifesto, the Czech directors of photography, that the expert group should consist out of representative for every field of main authors, so for director of photography, and for sound. If it would be possible to include the authors, we would, but since they were all deceased, we picked some of our colleagues or experts who formed this group. It was really important that we had also film restorer and archivist Nadia, because she was not just, thinking about colors and author decisions, but she also had the knowledge which was important about the technological processes and how the production of that time was going. So during the process, she made a lot of important questions about whether we should leave something in the picture. Is this maybe a testament to some technological process, and so on. Also, what was important was the inclusion of teachers and mentors from Academy, because they were a part of the production of that time. So they knew how the things were going, and they could help us with some guidance about this. And in the end, the biggest dilemma of all was what was the author's intent, because this is author work, it's a piece of art, and it's really tough to decide what is the final look if you don't have the author to tell you what he wanted. So we had to rely on documentation and available materials. So the main problems, which I already mentioned, was the lack of reference copies. The reference is always important when restoring films, and with this film we only had one projection copy, which was used for distribution in festivals, and it was really worn out and totally scratched. I will show you just a short example from this, that you see what was the look in the beginning of this. So you see that the colors are pretty much washed up. Everything is in some kind of red tones. It's basically monochromatic. So this was the material which we started. And the problem was that the mentors during this time, during these 40 years since the making of films, and the students, they all thought that this look is intent, that this was the author's decision, that because we are talking about hiding and about life, battle for life, and about all this, that this red is some kind of symbolic of blood. But in the end we found out that this was just effect of old film copy. So yeah, that was one part of our research. Then the next main problem which we had to kind of battle with was that all the main authors were deceased. So we had some living children, heirs, that could help us, but they didn't know anything about this project because it was made long time ago, and authors Žarko and Vilko didn't talk about this because it was just one of student projects that they did. So then we said, okay, maybe we should look for some documentation, and then we found out that in archive of our academy there was no documentation about this film. The map, the folder with all the papers was gone. And we were then researching and found out that maybe this was the problem, because this film was kind of politically a little bit not appropriate for that time, and that maybe the director, because he feared that something will happen to this film, that he took all the documents and took them somewhere, so Academy doesn't have them anymore. So apart from some archive lists and some invitations to festivals, there was nothing left of production papers. So the documentation was not really helpful. And then we said, okay, we have a lot of copies which are totally red. We have some telekine transfers which are already breaking apart. So we don't have any reference really. And then we decided to just look at all the materials and repair them. And we decided to repair all the copies step by step, to make new tapes, to clean them ultrasonically, so that we get lost of all the scratches and all the dirt which came on film after it was made. This is a snapshot from this previous version. And then we said, okay, because there is no documentation, we have to rely on experts. So we decided to scan all the materials, and then we looked at all of them and compared them and find out that they are different from each other. And then we went to the original film, so the original reversal 60mm stock, and we found out that the picture is in pretty good condition, that colors are okay, and that everything is in order. Then we went next step and we looked at the film duplicate, which was made to distribute copies. And we found out that during the copying of the original film, somehow the film got stuck in this film copying machine, and it skipped a frame or two. And from that point on the film copy, there was a lack of synchronization between sound and picture. So at one point, it just, as you could see in the projection, the film is still in some parts out of sync. That is the problem, because the collaborators or the time frame which was intended for this kind of projects was really short. It was really technological, not really advanced. So if they made a mistake during the mixing or during copying, they didn't make another copy because they didn't have money to. So that's why you heard some sound levels going up or down, or some distortions. This was all part of the film process at that time, and still is. But since in Academy now everything is in digital workflow, you can repair these things in a minute. At that time, you had to do everything all over again. So yeah, that was a problem, and all these mistakes were not corrected. So we had another some kind of dilemma. Should we repair this, or is this part of film as it was intended? At the end, we decided that we repair this mistake of skipped frame, because the original, the first generation material had everything in order, and we said this is the intent of the author, of the director, and the next step was a mistake, technological, which was not his intent. So we said, okay, we should jump to the third generation and take that as a source. So we joked at the premiere that that was the first time in 40 years since the spectators saw the film more or less in synchronization, because before that everything was always out of sync. The next problem was the colors, which were totally red at duplicate and at screening copy. And we decided then to go to the first generation and put all the colors in the natural state. So we decided that we won't take any selective corrections, that we won't change colors. We just did the processes which were possible to do at that time on the film copying machine. So we did a little contrast, we did a little exposure correction, and the colors just overall picture, saturation, nothing else. Because we said that we shouldn't, if it wasn't possible at that time, they didn't do it, so we shouldn't do it also. This is a picture, for example, from the sound tape, the start, the beginning. And after we cleaned and restored and did everything on the materials and digitized them, there was a question which scratches should remain on the film, which parts of picture which are a little bit dirty should remain dirty, and which we should clean. And then we went to the consultation with Nadia, and we were talking about technological process at that time. editing of this film was made by a film director who was doing that at the Academy, so he didn't have the best workflow or work environment to work in. So we decided that since on all copies which came out of this film were seen the splices, we decided to leave them in. Because at that time it would be possible to copy film in such a way that these splices would not be seen, but because they didn't do it in this way, we decided to leave in because it is some kind of evidence of film process. It's the same with out of focus shots, it's the same with grain in the picture, because everything is kind of under roof of technological process of Academy, of student films, and it's kind of a testament in what state was the film production in that time. And if we would clean the picture totally, then we would lose this technology testament and film process testament. It was the same with levels of sound. We were thinking with Sound Restorer if we should correct the volume, so it would be the same. If we should correct these silences, because in some parts of film you hear the end of sound tape and then it's just silence without anything, without atmosphere. And we decided that we should leave this in, because they had the opportunity to do this atmosphere, but they didn't decide to do it. So we said, okay, maybe this was intentional, because the director wanted to create atmosphere in which this main guy was. So he was closed in the house, he didn't have any connection with environment outside the house, so maybe this was intentional, that we don't hear anything, just so we said, okay, we leave this in. And we also lived in all the technical brooms and the noises of the machines, because this is also a technical process. But we decided to clean everything that came on the film after it was finished. So all the dirt from the copying, all the dirt from the handling of the film, we mainly erased in the ultrasonic cleaning process and also a little bit in the digital workflow. But we compared all the materials and we saw, on the final copy there is a scratch which isn't in the source material, so this scratch came after it was copied, so on the original there isn't, so we can erase it. Also, it is seen that some things were not edited the most perfectly, the sound was not made in best way, but we said that all this is kind of a product of a director. He made his second year with this film, so we should leave this in. We had some experts from television, which were kind of, friends of other way of doing a remasterization, of doing a total cleanup, but we decided that this is not our intent. Our intent was to preserve the film as it was, as director wanted it. So this is again from the source material, and this is the final picture. You can see that original copy distribution was way more grainier, it was way more scratched, it was totally monochromatic, basically red to contrasty, and the original had a lot of more colors, it had less grain, more saturation, more sharpness, so we were thinking that this is probably the way that they wanted their film to look. We also had some problems because since this film is in good condition, but it was a film stock which was made for eastern part of Europe, which was a little bit of lower quality, but we were kind of surprised because the colors after 40 years were basically more or less the same that they were. We have a lot of information, so in some way, if we didn't have documentation, if we didn't have authors, we at least had source materials which were in pretty good condition, this first generation one. All the others were total shit, but these were pretty good. So it was a long process, a year long. We had to spend a lot of energy with coordination and kind of these arguments if something should be cleaned up or left in film. And I think these were the main debates and still are in all the film restoration world, that is something part of author's creation, is something ethical to put out, or is it the right way to put it in? And we said that since this is kind of example of film restoration practice, it should be left in. But for a common spectator who is watching this thing on a television at home, maybe it would be better to, I don't know, crop a little bit of picture, to put a little more colors, less scratches, and so on. But since we wanted to do it the kind of appropriate way, we did it this way. So yeah, I'm kind of sorry that the film wasn't subtitled, but since it was made in student conditions, it never was. And also, we didn't have a means to do it now, so we kind of left it like it is. So, and I think also for Slovenians, for residents of this country, is also difficult to understand everything because they are really talking in some kind of dialect that is a little bit archaic. But yeah, it is. I think it's very interesting to see some kind of rituals and customs that they had. It's kind of testament of a time, and I think this is also the important thing with films, that we preserve them because they show us the world from some other time and place, which maybe doesn't exist anymore. So I think it's it's really important that we preserve the history for the future. This is everything from me. Thank you for hearing my Slavonic English, and thank you for coming. If everybody has any question, you're more than welcome.